Today I've got another Roco tram to have a look at. I've had a look at one of these before on this channel. It was a 3-car unit. I'll put a picture of that video on screen now, and I'll also link it at the end of this video if you want to have a look. This one's a 2-car unit and it's number 8500 in the Roco range. You can see here as well that this costs $26.99 from a shop called Beatty's here in the UK. Now I'm not exactly sure when this was purchased, but Beatty's has been out of business for a while now. $26.99 seems like a great price for this model, so I can't wait to have a look at it. So let's get it out the box and we'll check it out. So we've got quite a few bits of paper here in this box as well as the model. This one is duplicate of a leaflet which is talking about the little pin that you get, which is this one here. So apparently if you get 10 of these you can get a little model or something like that. It's quite an interesting thing, and I wonder what it was that you got for free. I've never managed to get 10 of these yet, and I think this deal is probably ended now. It does say here that it's only applicable to models that have been made after 1978, but it doesn't say when the closing date was, so you never know. At some point I might actually have enough of these. We've also got quite a large instruction sheet here. It's got a picture of the model at the top, and it has some history of this tram in German, English and French as well. On the back it talks about how you can take this model apart, and it has a picture here. Unlike the other one we had a look at, it also has illumination as well, and you can see that the motor is really quite low down in the model. And finally there's a picture down the bottom here showing where to put the decals and the extra parts. And here is those decals. We've got quite a few of them here, and also the extra parts as well in this bag. So these haven't been opened since the factory, so that's quite cool I think. And here is the model, and it looks actually really quite cool and also very clean as well. I'm not actually even sure if this has been used before. Both the cars are coupled together permanently, so I'm going to have to be careful not to break anything when we're having a look at it. We've got this very characterful look to this tram. I love these lights here. We saw in the instructions that they're illuminated as well. And this angled windscreen has been produced very nicely as well. It looks really spot on, and it's very clear and you can see inside as well. And talking of the interior, we've got a full interior in there. We can just see the motor sticking through the middle of the seats there, but it's not really that intrusive at all. And it is a 2-colour interior, and we've even got a driver compartment with a driver's seat and some controls there. The printing on this is really very well done. The masking is good on this green, but it does have a few parts where it's not quite right, like here just under this window where it isn't quite clear. In some places the painting isn't quite as solid as it could be, but the masking is really good I think. Not a lot of detail on the side of these trams. However, the windows look great because they have these surrounds, although it is a bit scrappy around the edges. And it does also have the silver on the windows too, which is really quite cool. It has a little orange indicator picked out here, but then there's nothing else really on the side. It's quite slab-sided until you come to the middle where it's articulated, and the number is repeated on this part here. I really like the articulation on these models. It looks quite good actually, and I like the engineering that's gone into these models to make that happen. So we move further down. The only difference on this carriage is that we've got a little bit of a grille here, but it is different at the rear. We've got a different arrangement of lights here. The number is printed, but the window setup is different with these bars on it, and it's just an open space there. There's no driver obviously. The other side of the tram is a bit more interesting because we've got the doors, which are really nicely moulded into the main body of plastic, and they have these black stripes printed onto them as well. We have 2 sets of doors per carriage, and on the driver's side we have the grills here, and then we also have some more numbers printed there. Those numbers are really hard to read with the naked eye. Hopefully you can see them okay on the video here, but it's quite incredible that such a small set of numbers have been printed onto this model. Looking on the roof, it's 2-tone with this darker grey colour in the middle. The masking is also really good. It does suffer a little bit on the back of this part here. So this would be, I guess, for the number of the route, and the destination would be just underneath it. You'd put the transfer on there, I guess. So just on the back of that number board, I don't think that's prototypical. It should be dark grey. But up here we've got some really nice fine detail, and this pantograph here just on this front carriage. It's spring loaded. This one has a little bit of corrosion on it because it is getting old, this model, but the operation on this still works very well with the springs, and there's a really nice chrome runner on the top there. And then as we move back, there's some really nice fine moulding on these pieces here along the top of the roof. And then this part in the middle, it actually looks as though it's maybe a moulding fault or a paint fault or something like that. So I think that could have been finished off a little bit better on that middle part. And the roof on the trailer car just has 2 panels on the top of it, but no other features. But what is really good is that there's no moulding mark on the top of this one. And I think this ridge running along these panels here is actually meant to be there. So the moulding on this model is actually really good. Underneath at the front here we have a hole where you could fit in the NEM pocket, which was in the additional parts bag. You can see that this is the driven bogie here. It's got some gear wheels on it and it's obviously driving both axles, and we have traction tyres on them as well. The motor is visible here, and then as we move along we have this panel which says made in Austria, and you can see the Roco logo there. This screw here, I guess if you wanted to start taking this model apart. The centre bogie is hinged here, allowing this to get around tight corners. And also this bogie picks up power as well as the front bogie too. Underneath we have some bracing moulded into the bottom chassis here, and you can see the wires running here, and there's a little bit of glue on each end of these wires. I think that is actually from the factory, but it's underneath the tram so you wouldn't see that at all. And then finally at the rear we've got another hole where we can fit in the NEM pocket if we want to, and a couple other boxes moulded here as well. So this is certainly looking like a very nice, clean and well looked after tram. Let's put this on the test track and see how it runs. Okay, here it is on the test track. It was a bit tricky to get on the rails there because of its small wheels, but I got there in the end. I'm just powering this with, as usual, my H&M controller, so let's give it some power and see what happens. So this model had no problems getting going. The lights work as well, and it's really low gears, so it just crawls along. Very prototypical of a tram, I think. I did notice it kind of stutters a little bit as it's going along. It could just do with a little bit of oil or possibly a bit of a clean up. But overall, this is a fantastic performing little model. I'm interested to find out how much it weighs, so let's put it on the scales. This tram weighs 202 grams. So this two-car tram from Roco I think is a really great model, but it does have some downsides I think. So let's start off with them before I start telling you about the good stuff. So some of the window surrounds do have a little bit of roughness to them. It looks like possibly the paint hasn't taken too well and it looks a little bit scrappy. It's probably something easily resolved with a little bit of paint and care. We also had that paint issue in the central part, it articulates as well on the roof. Not sure why that's happened. It's maybe been worn out over time. It's possibly indicative of a manufacturing fault there, or possibly something wrong with the design. And also there's possibly something not quite right with the gearing here. It is all made of plastic, but it might just need a little bit of oil and then it'll be fine, so I wouldn't hold that against it. But there's a lot to really enjoy about this model. The paintwork is really great. The masking between the colours is fantastic. The actual shape of this tram is really appealing as well. It's got such a characterful cab to it. It's got a fantastic pantograph. Just a bit of a shame it doesn't pick up from that, but I think that could be easily resolved if you really wanted to do that. And let's face it, not everybody does do that. The glazing is spot on as well, and the interior is really good. It could definitely benefit from having some passengers in there, that's for sure, and definitely having a driver. Because the windows are so clear, you can just see straight in. So I think this is a fantastic model, and if you want to have a layout with some trams on it, I think this model from Roco and also the 3-car one that I reviewed earlier would be great additions to that layout and would perform really well as well. So it's definitely a thumbs up from me, but that's just what I think. What do you think about this tram? I'd love to know what your thoughts are in the comments below. And if you liked this video, please give it a thumbs up. It really helps this channel. I'll put this on the turntable so you can see all the way around, and I'll put a link on screen to that other video with the 3-car unit, and I'll see you over there. See ya!